Good afternoon. So first of all, thank you very much for your pictures again of the lovely curries, and we've had some absolutely amazing paellas being sent through to me. Really glad that you're enjoying all the different dishes that I'm choosing. So today I thought we'd do something a little bit more Mediterranean, and we're going to do a take on panzanella, which is usually a bread salad, but we're going to use bread in terms of croutons, and we're going to mix that as a hot dish and do a chicken panzanella. And I'm going to try and tempt you to maybe use some ingredients you haven't used before, and you might think, oh, I'm not sure if I like that or not, but please give it a go, because if you don't like the ingredients on their own, when they're mixed together in this dish, the flavours totally change and they really work well together. So what we'll do first is I'll take you through the equipment that you're going to need, and then we'll look at the ingredients. So I'll move my camera down and you'll be able to see my board, and I'll talk you through what you need. So you can see on my board what I've got is I've got a tablespoon, and that's for measuring our red wine vinegar. We've got a small knife for cutting the tomatoes and the olives, and we've also got a large knife for the onion. I've also got an oven-proof dish. Okay, if you haven't got one big enough and you're cooking for the whole family, you might want to use two of these, or use your grill pan, or maybe a big baking tray, because there's quite a lot of ingredients going in here and you do sometimes need a bigger dish. So feel free to use two of these if you're cooking for the family. The other thing that you're going to need is a jug just to measure out your olive oil. Okay, I'll probably forget something like I always do, but I think that's it in terms of equipment. So if I move that over to one side, and then we'll look at the ingredients. So it's chicken panzanella, so we are going to need some chicken. And I'm going to use some chicken drumsticks and some chicken thighs. You can use chicken breast for this, you can use quarter chicken, chicken legs, doesn't really matter. Next thing, I've got some cherry tomatoes, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cherry tomatoes here. I've got a small red pepper, and I've also got an onion. I'm probably just going to use half of this onion because it's quite big, and I'm just going to make a portion, sort of like a small lunch for 2 people. I've also got myself some olives. Now you can use any type of olives, doesn't matter if they come in a container like this or in a jar or a can, doesn't matter if they've got herbs or chilli or garlic with them. Try and avoid ones that are stuffed with anchovies or bits of chorizo, but chorizo would actually work quite well in this dish because you want to stick to the original flavours. So mine are just green olives with herbs. I've also got some olive oil, I've got some red wine vinegar, some oregano, and also garlic, and this is to make the dressing. And then I've also got to hand, because I quite like it on my food, salt and pepper. So I think we've got everything there. Pop those back, move my camera back up. Okay, so I have of course washed my hands, I've got my apron on, and because we're dealing with raw meat again, as per the last 2 recipes that we've done, I've got my bowl of hot soapy water ready, so I can wash any equipment or my hands before I go and use the taps and wash them with soap, just to really eliminate any of that risk, that cross-contamination risk. So I'll get myself sorted. I'm going to turn the camera off now, but I'll join you in a minute and we'll be ready to cook. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to just prepare the chicken. Okay, so I've just taken some of the chicken out of my large pack, obviously wrapped it back up, popped it back in the fridge, and I've just got my 4 pieces of chicken on the board. I have turned my oven on to 180 degrees or 375, depending on whether you're working on centigrade or Fahrenheit, and let that preheat before you start to put the chicken in it. So you want your cooker on round about 5-10 minutes before you put the chicken in, just to allow it to warm up. So I'm going to move the camera now so you can see my chicken. Okay, so I've got 4 pieces of chicken on the board, and the drumsticks here, generally there's not really anything that you need to trim off. They're quite neat in terms of how they've been cut. But what you might find with the thighs that I'm using here, I'll just cut that through, is it might have a little bit of extra skin here. So using that claw hold, okay, just cut off any extra skin and just pull it out a little bit with your knife like that and cut it off, trim it. You want the skin to go crispy in this dish, so you want to leave this part on. Okay, we'll just open it up again. If you find that it has actually joined together like this, you'll notice that I just put my knife away from me. Never do it towards you. Put your knife away from you and just pull that skin and gently just cut it. Okay, like that. And then chop off. Okay. So we've trimmed that. That can go aside. We don't need that. And what I'm going to do is, to make sure that this chicken is cooked in time, I'm going to just pre-cook this chicken for about 5 or 10 minutes in the dish. So I'm just going to move this to the dish and I'll show you the dish afterwards. But I just want to move my board and everything out of the way. So with my clean hand here, I'll bring this over, and I've just popped those into a baking dish. And I'm just going to pop those in the warm oven, in the hot oven, so make sure it's come to temperature, just for about 5, 6, 7 minutes, just to start the cooking process. If you're using larger chunks of breast meat or whole legs with the thigh attached, you might want to leave them in for 10 minutes. It's really, really important that this chicken cooks through, and if you don't allow it this initial cooking time, then you'll find that your vegetables will burn. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of my board, clean it up, and come back, and we'll prepare the vegetables and pop that chicken in the oven. Okay, so I've washed my board up, my knife, that's all nice and clean now, and I've also just put some nice hot soapy water back in my bowl, just change that water over, just to wash up as I go along. What I'm going to do first is we're going to prepare the dressing. We won't need that until later, but whilst your chicken's having that initial 10 minutes cooking time in the oven, or 5-6 minutes, we'll start to prepare the vegetables. So in terms of the dressing, you're going to need your garlic, and if you remember, this is the whole bulb, not the clove. So when we open this up, we can take out from here one of the cloves, and that's what you want to use. If you want more garlic, you can use 2. I prefer just 1, and it's quite a large clove here. So I'm going to chop this up and peel it, so I'll move the camera down, you'll be able to see what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm going to cut the flat end off and remove any peel from the garlic clove. If you're struggling with this, whoops, okay, feel free to cut it in half using that bridge hole down the middle there. Okay, and that will just release any skin that is difficult to take off. There we go. Move that to the side. Now we just need to do a rough chop. Because we've cut this in half, it's given us a nice flat edge as well to work with. So knife on the garlic, bridge hold all the way across, good steady hold on the knife. If you want to use the smaller knife for this, you can do. I do like working with a larger knife with the garlic. Okay, and chop it into little pieces like that. And the same with this one. So again, bridge and then claw, good strong hold on the knife. Okay, if you are going to use the knife to pick the garlic up with, just be really, really careful. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop that into my jug. Garlic can be a bit sticky actually once you've chopped it. So it's just sticking to my hand there. Okay, in that jug then, we're going to put 100 ml of oil. Now, actually we're going to put 80 ml because I'm mixing my dressing, so you need 100 ml of oil in total, but you need 80 ml in here and 20 ml to put onto your bread at the end. Now, if it's not exact, it doesn't really matter with this. So I can see I've got 250 ml in this bottle. So if it was 300, I'd be looking at 1/3 of the bottle. So I know I need just sort of about 1/3 of the bottle, or just over 1/3 of the bottle to make the dressing. But you can do this by eye. If you've got a small measuring jug, you can use that. And you can see on here, you've got 100 ml marker on your jug. So I'm going to just pop it below there. I know I've got my garlic in, and that will be taking up some of the volume of the jug. But as I say, it doesn't really matter. You don't have to be exact. Okay, so about 80 ml there. Put the lid back on. And then I'm going to pop in 2 tablespoons of red wine vinegar. So using my tablespoon, that's the largest spoon that is in your drawer, not just a dessert spoon. If you're using a dessert spoon, I would just put sort of 2.5 of the vinegar in. So that's a dessert spoon that you'd eat your pudding with. Okay. And then I'm also going to put some oregano in. If you haven't got oregano, you can just use your mixed herbs, Italian herbs, that doesn't really matter. And it's about a teaspoon, so if you pop them into your hand, again, you don't have to measure this, you can just pop those in. I am going to put some salt and pepper in mine. As I say, I do like a bit of salt and pepper seasoning, especially on chicken. It just brings out the flavour a little. And then some salt. Okay, and that's our dressing. So because we've made this early, the garlic will infuse the dressing a little bit as we're preparing the vegetables. I'm going to pop that to one side. So first things I'm going to do is prepare my cherry tomatoes and my olives. I'm going to leave the onion till last because it does have a tendency to make me cry, okay? And then we can get cleaned up and put everything away. I'm going to use a small knife, bridge hold, and I'm just going to cut them in half. Okay, now again, it's up to you how many tomatoes you want to put in. If you've only got a few, then that's absolutely fine. If you haven't got cherry tomatoes, you can use large tomatoes, but just cut them into quarters. So once you've cut them in half, just cut them in half again like that, if it's the large ones. I'm going to pop those in a bowl. Now I'm going to get my olives, so take out the wrapper, leave that rubbish onto it there, and I'm going to put some olives onto the board, and again I'm just going to cut these in half. If you want to leave them whole you can, but I just like to have smaller pieces to distribute the flavour. Okay, if you are tempted to eat an olive as you're cooking, don't forget to wash your hands in that water. You shouldn't really be eating while you're prepping food, but I know sometimes, especially if you're at home, we're all tempted and we do it. Okay, so those are my olives. I'm going to put my olives back in the fridge and cover them with some cling film in a minute. Okay, and then we'll move on to the pepper, but I'm just going to wash my hands. Okay, a little bit of cling film because it's summer and I've got the windows open. Unfortunately, I do have a fly in here, so I'm just very conscious that it's not going to land on any of my ingredients. So I'll pop that there, and I'm just going to cover my bowl of cherry tomatoes just to make sure it doesn't land in them. Pop these in the fridge. Okay, and then I'm going to move on to the pepper. So we used the pepper last time, and if you remember I said if you just push in the centre of the pepper and then just split it, you can actually just pull out those pips and seeds and any bits you don't want. And I'm just going to, with the big knife, holding it in that claw grip, I'm just going to rough chop this. I'm going to keep it sort of reasonably large, the pieces, because I don't want them to burn. I want them to cook a little bit and go soft, but I don't want to overcook them and make them so small that they're just charred bits in the bottom. Right, I'm going to just put my pepper on the top there and deal with the onion. So this is quite a large onion, so I'm only going to use half of it. So I'm going to cut this end off here. This is the root end, and this is where the vapour bag is stored, that when you cut through it, it releases all the vapours that make you cry. I'm going to cut this part here, which is the top of the onion. So it's quite hard to hold this because it will roll around. So a wide claw grip and just push down and cut that top off. I tend to peel it to the side there to start the peeling of the skin. I'm going to leave some of the skin on here, flat face down, cut through it. Okay, and then start to peel off any outer layers of the onion. Okay, so I can see here this onion is probably a little old. I'm going to need to peel off this layer here as well. So I might use a bit of the other one. There we go. We'll see how we go. And all I'm going to do is cut the root off this time. We're not having to do the fine chop or the mid chop that we did before. And I'm just going to rough chop it down. Okay, this style of cookery stems from sort of Italian or Spanish farmhouse cooking. So it is very rustic, rough and ready. So you don't need to do those precise chops that you do in some of the dishes. Just take off any odd bits of skin that you feel you don't want to eat. Okay, so we've got our onion chopped as well. So we've got all of our vegetables that are going to go into the dish. So I'm just going to leave that chicken in there for another minute or so, and then I will show you what to do next. Okay, so my chicken's been in the oven for around about 8 minutes now, and it's just started that pre-cooking process, so you're just giving it a chance to actually cook properly. So we're going to add the vegetables and the dressing, and that's going to be in the oven for around about 20 minutes. But if you're using smaller pieces, you might want to just say maybe 16 or so. So let's get the chicken out. You'll be able to see what it looks like. I'll pop it on my board, okay, and then I'll move the camera down. Okay, so the chicken here has just started to cook, but obviously it's not cooked all the way through at the moment. So I'm going to pop on my peppers and my onions, and what I want to do is try and leave the chicken poking out at the top. And I'm also going to put on my olives and my tomatoes and tuck them down. The dish will be hot, so just be careful. The chicken won't be too hot, but the dish will have taken in quite a lot of heat. So if you want to use a spoon to do this, you can do. Okay, so I've got that nicely put over like that. I kind of like the olives to go down to the bottom, just protects them as they're a little bit more delicate. I'm now going to pour my dressing over, so I'm going to give it a stir first, and I'm just going to spoon out some of the garlic cloves on the bottom and just pop them all over to get an even distribution. Okay, and then pour that over the top too. You might think, oh gosh, that's an awful lot of oil. Okay, it is an unsaturated oil, so it's a little healthier obviously for you, and it does form the basis of a really healthy Mediterranean diet with lots of fresh fruits and vegetables and fish. So please don't use a sunflower oil or anything like that. If you do, you need to just lessen the amount of oil that you've got, because you might find it too greasy. The olive oil will mix with the natural oils from the chicken, and it will taste really lovely. But if you use a different type of oil, you might not want to put this much on. If you're wanting to be really healthy and watch your calories, or some member of your family is, then feel free just to use a spray oil, okay, in a bottle. You can get an olive oil one or just a regular one, because you're not using an awful lot, and just spray this. It will be a much drier dish, and obviously you wouldn't have the dressing with the red wine vinegar, but you could put the garlic in there and the herbs and just spray the chicken if you wanted to lessen that. So this is now going back in the oven, okay, and we're going to pop this in the oven for around about 15 minutes, and then I'm going to check it. So I'll see you in a little while. Okay, so I've taken my chicken out of the oven now. You can see the chicken's going really brown, the peppers and everything are cooking, and you now need to prepare the bread that makes the crispy croutons. So I'm going to show you what my chicken looks like, because there is quite a lot of oil in my chicken, and it will depend on how much juice that comes out of your chicken, as well as to how much liquid you've got. So there are two ways you can prepare your croutons, dependent on how much liquid you've got in your dish. So the first way is that you would break up your bread, and I've got ciabatta rolls like this, okay, but you can use crusty bread rolls or a longer ciabatta or French stick, it doesn't really matter. And what I would do is break it up into bite-sized pieces, and then you can either brush the remaining 20 ml of olive oil over them and add some salt and pepper, or if you're really careful, if you've got lots of oil in your dish, you can dip the pieces into the oil carefully. So I'm actually going to do it that way. So I'll turn the camera down and I'll show you how to do that. Right, so hopefully you can see my chicken. If I hold it up to the camera a little bit, okay, you will see that there is quite a lot of oil in there, you can see here. Okay, so I'm going to get a dish, and with a big spoon, so maybe get a dessert spoon or your tablespoon again, I'm going to put some of this oil, now this will be a mixture of oil, as I say, and chicken juices, into a dish. And I'm actually going to use this to create my crispy croutons. And if you put your spoon on the top of the oil like this and gently press down, being careful not to touch the dish, you'll pick up a lot of the oil that's sitting on the top. Okay, and you can use that. All right. I'll put that to one side. I'll put my dish here so you can see what I'm doing. Now, you can just simply break off chunks like this. If I move my spoon out of the way, you can just dip it in and then pop it on the top. Or, if you want, you can use one of these and just brush a little bit of oil onto it. So it depends on which way you're going to do it. Just tear your bread up into bite-sized chunks, and dependent obviously on how much room you've got in your dish will depend on how much bread you put in. But you're wanting these to sit on the top, but you still want to allow your chicken to poke through. Okay, so just pop that there, and you can protect those delicate peppers and tomatoes now from burning by placing this bread on the top. Okay, so just grab some of the oil on there. A lot of this is the chicken juice, and it's a little bit like when you baste your roast potatoes. Okay, they go nice and crunchy and brown. So I've got quite a bit on here. Oops, drop that in there. And I'm going to actually just leave it with one bread roll, because two would actually be too many. But as I say, if you've done double the portion, you'd have two dishes going on side by side to feed a family of 4. I'm going to pop a little bit more salt and pepper over the top, just to season. And then this is going to go back in the oven in for 10 minutes. So I'll pop this back in the oven. Tuck any bits of bread that you think might burn, but you do want crunchy bits. Okay. And I'll just move my camera up. Okay, so that's going to go back in for 10 minutes, and that is your dish done. So if you've decided to use halloumi instead of chicken, I think on one of the comments underneath the recipe sheets that's on the school Facebook page, I did explain how to do this. What you need to do is, obviously, you don't pre-cook your halloumi like you did the chicken, because halloumi will cook very, very quickly. And if you've used halloumi before, which is a type of cheese, it's a hard cheese, so it doesn't melt, you'll understand that it doesn't take too long to cook. So what I would do is cook your peppers and your tomatoes and your onions and your olives and everything with the oil dressing, okay, for about 10 minutes first. And then slice up your halloumi into centimetre wide slices, and just give them a little brush with the oil on both sides that's in the dish, and pop them in the dish and cook it from there on, and then add your croutons afterwards like you have with the chicken. So obviously you can just use it with just vegetables as well, and just have purely vegan rather than using the halloumi. So each way works perfectly lovely, and it is really tasty whichever way you do it. So I'm going to let that cook for 10 minutes, and then I will bring it out of the oven, and you can see what it looks like at the end when we plate up. Hope you enjoy it.